this is Ron from iTech Legion, and this is part of our review of the Arc Midi R2 mid-tower case. And it is part of a longer review. If you want to read that, just click on the description below to go to our website and read it. Also, in the description below, you'll find the overview and an unboxing video with my conclusion and what I thought of this case after I have finished installing it. And it is a part where I show you how to install components one by one. Note that this case is very flexible in terms of compatibility with enthusiast class cooling solutions. So I will not go into too much detail in showing you how to install radiators here for water cooling. This review is more in the traditional line of air coolers, although I will mention those capabilities and passing as we go along with our review. Well, the first step I usually do is either the power supply or the motherboard installation. And of course, you're going to need an accessory pack. They included a standoff, 9 standoffs here for the ATX standard, and you have also an adapter for installing the standoff, so you don't need the long pliers. And of course, you need to look for the holes you need to use first. The holes for ATX are labeled A, while the holes for the micro ATX is labeled M. This case supports both micro ATX and ATX cases, and rather motherboards. And first you do is, of course, you'll need a screwdriver, Phillips head screwdriver, and then put your standoff inside this adapter, like so. Then take your screwdriver and just install it in one of the mounting holes. It's much easier than using a long nose pliers, and also much more sturdier and more reliable. Of course, proceed to do that with the 8 more standoffs. Then we can install our motherboard. With our motherboard standoffs installed, the next step is to install the power supply. And if you notice that there is a ventilation hole at the bottom, that means you have to position your power supply so that the fan faces downwards into that, so it can draw in cool air from the bottom. And if you have a non-modular power supply, such as the Fractal design 800 watt Tesla, as you see here, start routing the cable to the back, so you can leave the chamber. You can actually, if you're not going to install a 120mm or 140mm here at the bottom for an intake fan, then you could actually leave the rest of the cables you're not going to use here sitting at the bottom, and it won't really affect the airflow much, because all the intake fan is pre-installed here at the middle. And of course, the length of this power supply, let me just look for my ruler here. I believe the clearance is 170mm for the installation of 140mm fan support. This is a 160mm power supply here, so there's plenty of clearance, so there's no problem installing a fan in there. Let me just grab my ruler here, measure. It is in the 165mm long power supply, and there's up to 170mm of clearance in here. So if you have a 170mm power supply or shorter, you can install a fan here that's 148mm in length. If it's 170, around 175, then you can install a 120mm fan in there. And let's start to manage some of our cables here, and so that there's not much clutter, and we can proceed with our installation of our motherboard. Now we have our power supply and the motherboard standoff installed. You have to decide before you put in your motherboard if you're going to use the SSD mounting at the back, since you will have to screw them here at the front before you put in your motherboard. So if you are going to use those, make sure to access the screws here first, screw them in place, and then place your motherboard. And of course, for proceed with installing our motherboard, you have to install the I/O shield. Don't forget that. And you can also just route the cables at the back. There's plenty of room here at the top, so you can route the fan cables there, so they're out of the way. And plenty of room still for installing your motherboard. Configuration here, you have a 140mm and 120mm mounting at the front, while you have a larger area here in the rear which supports a 140mm, which is already a pre-installed. There's already a pre-installed fan in there, you guys can see, and it also supports a 240mm radiator through these holes right here, and the spacing is 15mm. So you will be able to install a 280mm radiator, such as the NZXT Kraken X60, although some radiators that have 20mm mountings won't be able to be installed here, since the mounting holes are not the flexible kind. And also, if you notice that the mounting here at the top is offset to the left to accommodate the motherboard mounting area, so that when you install a thicker radiator, it won't encroach on your RAM area. And there's also another fan mounting in here. It appears to be either a 180 or a 200mm. Alright, as you can see, I have installed my motherboard now, and also my heatsink. There is enough clearance for CPU coolers up to 180mm, at least according to Fractal Design's manual. And if you notice that we have our TC14PE here, which is one of the largest CPU coolers available in the market. And I'm going to close the side panel now, show you that there definitely is indeed enough clearance to fit such a large CPU air cooler. And in fact, there's a room for more. And also, over here, let me just show you the 8-pin cable connected in there. There is a special routing area underneath. If you find it too difficult, what you can do is you can remove the top fan momentarily or temporarily. It is actually easier to install the fan later on after you plugged in your cable. But in case your fan, for example, some power supplies have a 8-pin that is not long enough to be routed in the back, so you might have to take out the fan first for easier installation. You can remove the top panel, and although that won't help you access that area, it will help you guide where you will put your lock-in. So, because it allows you to see the perforation at the top, allows you to see the 8-pin CPU power connector area. Well, anyway, let's continue on with our installation now, and I'm going to show you the type of video card you can install inside the Fractal Design Arc Midi R2. To install a video card, of course, you have to remove a PCIe slot cover first. These are secured by thumb screws, although if they are a little too tight for you at the beginning, since it's fresh from the box, you might want to use your screwdriver to remove them. If you notice that they are, there is some airflow option there, perforated. And then just put that aside and grab my GTX 580 here, which measures 265mm. Let me just place that, and you can see that there is enough room to fit this video card in there, and with some room to spare, there is about let me just measure that. It is about 3 centimeters of space between the hard drive cage and the end of the GTX 580. And if you want to install a longer video card, you can do, of course, you can remove using 2 thumb screws located here, and just remove the hard drive cage here at the top and fit in a longer video card, which is the HD 6990. You can see that it pretty much reaches all the way to the bottom, and what this does, of course, is that you can even SLI 2 of them, since the bottom part is not blocking the way. The bottom hard drive cage is not blocking the way. Let me just move that around so you can see how much clearance there is. It's almost touching that by 2mm, but it definitely is possible. To install 3.5-inch and 2.5-inch drives inside the Fractal Arc Midi R2 case, you will need a screwdriver, of course, and the set of screws, depending on what you're going to install. For SSDs, you're going to use the bag with the 32 tiny screws as you see here. If you're going to install a 3.5-inch drive, you're going to use the bigger screws with a flat head on top. So, and basically use the hard drive caddy here. These are not tool-free, but they are metal and quite sturdy. And all you need to do once you've screwed your hard drive in place is that you just need to slide it in place back into the hard drive cage. If you notice, there are these rubber grommets in there. You can move them depending on the position you want, how far you want the connector to be from the edge. And you also have the you also have the option to install it with the connector facing this way or facing this way. Of course, you only can install the the hard drive caddy one way, since there is a lock on the other end that prevents it being pushed further. But as you can see here, I have one option here is with the connector facing the left side panel, and it's screwed underneath. And another option I have here is the 3.5 inch, the SATA connector is facing away from the panel, which is more of the usual connection. All you need to do, of course, once that is installed, just slide it in place, and you're good to go. You can even alternate if you want. And for 2.5 inch drives, you have to follow the mounting holes here at the bottom. I thought that you can probably, I was thinking that you can probably install 3.5 inch on top and an SSD at the bottom, but I tried it, and unfortunately there isn't enough space on top of each other, so you can only install a 2.5 inch drive on top of it, such as this one. Again, you can have the connector facing the left side or the right side panel, and just use the tiny screws at the bottom. You can notice that they don't have any dampening grommet on them, since SSDs don't really have any moving parts, so they don't produce noise like a mechanical drive would. Once they're screwed in place, just push it in and plug your SATA connectors in the rear or in the front, depending on how you set it up. Before you can install a 5.25 inch drive device here on the 5.25 inch drive bay, you need to remove the front bay cover. Of course, depending on the one you're going to use, you have to pick one. And if you're going to install something on top, make sure that the cable here is out of the way, because it can be blocking that. And also, you're going to use the thumb screws, including this bag right here. So let's pick the cycling slot here. Initially, there is a piece of metal here. The chapter remove, I removed it. Just break it off. You don't need it once you've removed it. But as you can see, it has a. If you're going to install a 3.5 inch drive in there, you can just leave that cover. It's not necessary. You can just actually, before I put it back, let me put in the top cover, since I'm not going to need that. Just slide it back in from the inside. Like so. Make sure it's properly here. Actually, you can actually plug it in from the other side. There you go. It actually goes the other way. And there we go. Got that back. And then we take our optical drive, slide it in place. See that there is the mounting holes here. There's 3 holes that you can align it to. So you can recess it. You can do a little stealth mod if you like. And just here for the regular setup there. Take 4 screws and just screw it in place. It's as easy as that. Alright, so this is what our build looks like with everything installed. As you can see, plenty of cable management options. Thus, our main chamber is perfectly clean of any clutter. And we have even our very tall CPU cooler, the Fractal DC14PE, which is one of the tallest CPU coolers currently available. And I'm going to just put in side panel here so you can see that there is definitely more than enough clearance for that CPU cooler. And what you do now is, of course, look at the back of the motherboard tray, and let's see what our cable management looks like on that side. Even on this side, behind the right side panel, you can see that it still is very clean. Even when we dumped all the cables here in the back and in here, these cables are the one. These braided cables are for the fan headers, stemming from the front fan, the top fan, and the rear fan, and you attach them to this connector right here, which is powered by a Molex connector, and they are basically linked to the fan controller, so you can adjust them. And just connect that back here, and as you can see there, plenty of cable ties for 24-pin cable to be held in place there. Although I would have wished for a cable tie that I can route here, so the 8-pin cable has something to hold on right here at the lower right-hand corner. Although I could just probably like tuck them behind there. That's still perfectly fine. There's about 2 centimeters of clearance there, so more than enough room to maneuver. And even in this area right here, there's plenty of room. And even without using 90-degree SATA cables, it still can close with a with a straight SATA cables connecting these hard drives and SSD. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to now put back the right side panel, and then we are going to take a look at the front LED, and also we are going to take a listen at the various fan noises emitted through the fan controller.